Man, I am excited about this milestone, mainly because it's behind me. The interior closeout panels are done. And I wasn't gonna make a video about this just because I was heads down working. I did get some shots, so this video may be a little bit choppy, I apologize. Plus I've been flying a lot for my airline job. But, you know, I figured why not make the video that I wish I had going into this process? Not because I'm proud of my workmanship. You all know me. At best, I'm an incredibly average builder. But because there's no instructions on this in the manual, in the text manual. Now, I got to thinking about why, and just knowing Randy a little bit, and he can correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, I got to thinking maybe he thinks that, you know what, if you get to this point of the build and you can't figure this out yourself, you have no business building an airplane. I don't know, that's just me. But it is behind me, and the resources I used were the EAA builder's logs, Pat Hatch particularly, thanks again Patch, that was awesome, all your pictures, as well as some of the comments in the Facebook builders forum, that RANS S-21 builders forum was pretty helpful there. As well as just taking my time and just backing up and realizing, hey, I can't do this until this is complete. So just thinking through it logically. So that's where I think this video is gonna help you. It's not gonna show you how to do things well. You will see some mistakes for sure, and hopefully you can improve upon my workmanship. But it'll show you kind of the order in which I do things, as well as some little techniques I use, just like making this little guy right here. And you know my deal, with most of my videos, there's a long form and a short form version. Enjoy. We're not gonna get to the seats in this episode because I didn't get any footage really, and they went together pretty straightforward. These are the newer seats, if you will. There are some older seats that are a little bit less straightforward, but in either case, the only thing I did different was I raised up the headrest in about an inch, which doesn't look like that, does it? And it still doesn't really fit my head very well, so I'm not sure. I might have to maybe just get another headrest and put it up here, double decker. And then the other thing was I primed, painted, and clear coated these so it looks a little bit sharper. Let's talk about where to start in this kind of phase of the build. Assuming that you're done with the rear baggage floor and the Station 4 closeout, the next place to start would be the header tank. Okay, the trick with the header tank that I found is knowing when to screw in the fittings. And if I recall, I think I had the front fitting on and potentially the bottom fitting on, but not the rear two. You're not gonna get it past the Station 3 bar to fit it in. Then once that's in, then you can screw those in. Obviously using the Permatex or the sealant there. Other than that, pretty straightforward, just making sure that this is clean, nice and clean. And then pressure testing, which I haven't done. So I've connected all the hoses right now, the lines up to here. I'm planning on connecting this, turning this shutoff. I'll get to this later in the video. And using this as one of the blockages. And then capping off the rear two, and then doing the pressure test. Actually using one of the rear two as the pressure test fitting. Okay, then once you're done with the header tank, then this really requires no effort whatsoever. It just kind of fits in. I think I did make a few just adjustments, open up some of these gaps a little bit, just a hair. And then I bent this, and then also bent right here, and it's fitting really nicely. Get that riveted in after you get in some nut plates there and there. Then you want to start working on the forward baggage floor, which I have out right here so that you can see what I did. I definitely strayed from the instructions here. A couple people on the forums were questioning why I put in a battery access door, and because it's so easy to put in the RANS optional battery charging cable. Honestly, it came down to just me being cheap and also wanting to save a little bit of weight. Apparently it doesn't weigh very much, so feel free to do that as a really good option. It's a charging port that mounts underneath here. So I just didn't want the extra complexity in cables, but they say it's really not that bad. Okay, so I just redesigned the locations, reallocated the locations of these, and I didn't save enough scrap. So, and RANS says you don't need these two stiffeners right here because it could sit on top of the tank just fine. But I wanted the added structure. Yeah, it's going to be added weight, but my dog's going to be back there. I don't want him pushing on this thing and having it, you know, kind of bend down onto the fuel tank. So put in some piano wire. I made the battery access door just to be able to not replace or remove the battery whatsoever, just to access it for charging. Okay, rather than remove the whole floor, which is pretty easy, but you know, there's gonna be weeks on end when I don't fly and I just want to hook it up without taking the floor off. Okay, so once that is done, now you don't necessarily want to start working on this right yet. You want to move over to the side panels and then work your way kind of back. On with the rest of the build video. You'll get what I'm saying as you see me build. All right, where do you think the air compressor should go? Back to Bill's house? Yep, because I bought my own. This is the day before Thanksgiving here in the US. Whenever I edit, it's probably gonna be about Christmas time. And it is not spring cleaning day, but I guess autumn cleaning day. We're gonna pull the plane out and reorganize so we can get the engine on the front end of this thing, because it's showing up real soon. And while the plane is out, I'm gonna probably talk to a bunch of looky-loos because it's in a fairly public place. But we're gonna turn on the avionics and see if we can't get the first GPS signal for the GA35 antenna into the GNX 375, because so far, the only thing that's got a signal inside the garage has been that small little puck that sits up on the glare shield for the G3X Touch. So I want the main acquisition. So anyway, enough chatting. Been putting this off for a while, so it's dirty. I'm sorry you gotta look at this, but it's gonna get a lot cleaner. Let's go. So this is a hydraulic line or hydraulic pipe for an F-15, and it was the problematic part that ultimately lost an F-15 over DC. We were capping, and a young lieutenant got a utility A light, which transitioned to utility B, which transitioned to full utility hydraulic failure, which turns a land as soon as practical into a land as soon as possible. Diverted into Andrews Air Force Base. Can't get into a lot of the details there, but ultimately the landing gear collapsed and live missiles on board and whatnot. Radome came falling off. The guy didn't eject. It was fine. He ran away from the jet. But that, we have a we had a name for that aircraft because it had a lot of hydraulic issues. I won't get into the name of the jet, but fun to find that little part and relive some old F-15 stories. I think on this channel I'll start telling more fighter pilot stories. What do you think? Oh, the reason I have this part is because I was the interim safety board president and investigated this initially and then handed it over to the formal safety investigation board. But it like consumed a lot of the last like 3 months of my life in the Air Force. But so they memorialized it for me so I can take that joy with me. Let's go, baby. It's sniffing them. It's sniffing them. Oh yeah, put the window in, not permanently. Oh yeah, initial acquisition, baby. And voila, we have room. Holy cow. This looks so different, but look at all this room for the engine. So the engine's gonna clearly come way up here, but I still have room to work. Bro, thanks so much for your help. This was amazing. Yeah, look at this. Well, now that the garage is reorganized, I'm continuing work on the center console that I'm custom building a plate to fit the components I'm actually using. So I think I showed you a little bit about this plate, just covering up some of the other holes that I'm not using, and filed it down. I think this is a great application for maybe a CNC send cut send, but I just wanted to kind of get it done. So I've got to match drill these size 40 holes, these 4 in the corners for rivets, just a PQ41s, and then I'm gonna put a 3.5 millimeter stereo standard kind of headphone plug right there, and I'm gonna tap into the, don't pay attention to these, I think these are both headphone, they need to be reversed, but they're just in there to hold this in place. But what I'm gonna do is tap into, I think, Copilot audio. And then once this is all done, obviously it goes in here. And I figured I'm gonna cover in carbon fiber. So it's just some 3M carbon fiber vinyl. I'm just gonna wrap the whole thing. Obviously with these out, it'll look really, really nice and clean. And then after that, we're gonna finish off these closeouts here. I messed up that, I don't wanna show, all right, I'll show you. So stupid error. But there's no text in the text manual for interior closeout, so you just kind of have to figure it out as you go. And there's a picture of this, and you know, hindsight, it's clear that I messed it up. But in the moment, these two closeout pieces get screwed together, but you have to PVC glue this strip on one side. Well, it makes sense now that it goes underneath, inside. Right now, I just glued it on the outside, and hard time talking about it because it's just so stupid. So I ordered another one from RANS. It's gonna cost me about $50, but we want that looking good. Talked about the chargers. I haven't talked about these. Obviously 2 headphones and 2 microphone jacks. Here are the spruce numbers for that. I wish they would come with 2 of these, right? Like you could set the depth a little bit better. But instead of that, I got just some nylon washers, spacers, if you will. So it'll do 2 things. It'll lower the height of these in there. And then it'll also isolate electronically, preventing some buzz if there's a bad ground or something somewhere. I might put a little bit of, just a tiny bit of Loctite, because these tend to just always get loose in a vibration-y aircraft, especially if in my Bonanza. Back to soldering and wiring, which I know it sounds weird, but it is my favorite part of this build. So the goal tonight is to do really just pilot, headphone, and mic. The reason why I'm waiting on the Copilot is, I might have mentioned it to you before, it's because I'm tapping into that for a 3.5 millimeter 1/8 inch jack for recording audio. And I don't have that jack. I just ordered it from Mouser, so it should show up in the next few days. And I may get into the USB. I was kind of looking at this mess right here, which I still have to clean up a little bit more. But I was finding the accessory, the big nice 18 gauge cable coming backwards is the accessory, and pull it out to start wiring up the USB and some other fun things out in the wings. So surprise coming later. Okay, this is the pilot microphone, just 2 connections. Next up, pilot stereo headphone, 3 connections. Okay, we're doing some interior fit up. These guys were a bit of a pain. They're not perfect. They look like they're sitting out a little bit, but that's okay because the closeout we're working on right now, as well as the seat, will push it nice and flush. I've got 1 more to wire, actually 2 more, headset and 3.5 millimeter audio out right there. But Andrea's here. Thank you, Andrea, helping me fit up. She is awesome with respect to fitment and very detail oriented as a jeweler, and good with jeweler saw, as you can see right there. It's a big help for this portion of the build. So there's lots of little things to kind of tweak. And then the gotcha in the book is that if you install just this, as it kind of shows in the diagram right here, you're gonna get to the next page and be frustrated. So don't forget to read ahead in the manual, because you're gonna find that these 2 pieces rivet together as well as it rivets together to this piece. So I call this kind of the trifecta closeout piece right there. And then everything else gets screwed in. It gets screwed into the floor, gets screwed into the center pieces that close out just in front of the flap handle. And then this piece gets trimmed out a little bit more than what's depicted there, because we have also the rudder cable tension support system that gets closed out as well. Kobe says hi. Whisper. Good. Now speak. Good. Good boy. So, I need to trim that. I need to finish trimming this piece, is this needs to come back a little more so that it can lay against that piece right there. So yeah, so that is kind of what we're painstakingly trimming right there. So that's a nice, good finish. And then on that side needs to be.
Just need to trim that.
So yeah, it's okay. A little bit of trim there. Okay. Curious to see what kind of screws will go into the floor, because it's going to be some sort of just a coarse thread, because I think just the material and the aluminum itself holds those screws in. Andrea's fitting up and trimming this piece right there to move this entire piece right there to close out that right there. Just completed the last of the wiring. I hope this works. So I'm just tapping into the co-pilot's headset and bringing it up to a 3.5mm jack so I can just plug in a recorder. I hope it doesn't mess with the grounding and whatnot. I could always just remove it, but that's the theory there. So we're gonna go ahead and install this and power up the system and see how it sounds. Quick progress update. We've got pretty much everything fit. I've got all the stiffeners installed. So I'm fitting up the centerpiece on top. It's eventually going to go underneath, but clearly I'm just kind of matching holes to eventually drill. And then in the morning, I'm going to start working on the rudder cable closeout. So the plastic piece that goes right there. And then the only thing left, other than kind of riveting this in, so there's discussion on the forums as far as, hey, do you want to maybe put nut plates here to remove everything? And the factory weighed in and they said, honestly, no. They did that initially, but they found themselves not even using them. So they just started riveting them. So this piece, this corner piece, and this side kick plate. When you remove all the screws, just kind of slide it forward and then start bringing it up and out. Clearly, you're going to have to deal with the stick boot. I may wait for covering to rivet the stick boot on. I'm not sure what I'm going to cover it in, either paint or some sort of fabric. But the last thing on this is going to be to get the fuel shutoff valve installed. Now that the rudder cable closeout is in, I'm working on the match drilling the corner right there, so that then once those are done, I can take this piece out and start working on the fuel shutoff valve. Meanwhile, we marked the center of the floor and then 78mm off, which matches the dimension of the new part, the rudder closeout right there that Andrea's fitting up. So getting a lot done. Let's see what Ani's working on. Airplanes? Airplanes. Nice. What are you making? Check it out. Pilates, and then move your hand for a sec. C-17. Look at that. That's that way. That's pretty sweet.
That one's the C5, by the way.
C5. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Wow. Check you out. You're exactly right. That's pretty
Mr. Aviator.
Question me. Oh, by the way, the Pilates also doubles as U-28. Woo. Before I final install everything, we've got to address the main fuel shutoff. All right. So what I did was clecoed the brackets with the shutoff valve in there. I don't have the silicone pad quite yet in there, just to kind of gauge the positioning of everything. Without the valve in there, there's just that hole, the circle, and I just eyeballed it and marked the center point on this skin. Took it off and just started upsizing it with a step drill bit and got it to a size that is pretty comfortable for this hull to sit in. I might upsize it one more size. It'll just take care of any sort of inaccuracies or movement when this gets finally installed. But from that point on, it's pretty straightforward. You just gotta get the placard on, and then the guard, and then final install the fuel selector valve, and then finally, I didn't mention that I took off the arm, the selector arm of this valve, of course, to make everything go smoother. But that's about it. There's not a lot to talk about with respect to that, other than you do have to cut a hole in the silicone pad, and it recommends, this is the figures manual, it recommends use a 5/8 tube sharpened on the inside to punch. I don't know anybody who's gonna do that. I mean, if you're a factory making hundreds of these, sure, but what that's referring to is essentially just cutting a hole in this for the valve to go through, or the handle to go through. So I'm just gonna scribe a 5/8 hole and cut it out with an X-Acto knife, and it should be just fine. I just cut it out with a razor blade. Good. This is the fuel shutoff valve, and I want to talk about something. So in my kit, it was revision B, okay? Currently on the latest, it's November of 2022, they're on revision C. And in revision B, this was flush mounted to these tanks, okay? You can see I have some washers in there. Revision C has spacers, and they don't rivet it through, they screw it in and have a backing nut for ease of maintenance and whatnot. Well, I don't have any of that hardware, and I want to keep moving. So I've got the small brass washers that fit perfectly there. I've got 5 of them stacked up to be a 16 hundredths, so 0.16 depth right there. And so rather than using an AAPQ42, because of the added depth, I've got an AAPQ45. So that'll go through here, and the reason I've got the drill bits, obviously, is to help with the stacking of those washers. So when I put the camera down, I will support the drill bit with my other hand and push that through, and that should be good to go, and pull the rivet through those washers and not have them fall out. And there's the final product. Pretty easy. Okay, so this front flange, where you can see it has 3 holes drilled, that doesn't have anything to secure the screws that go through it. All right, it's a number 6 panhead screw, and it attaches to the floor. I offset this middle one from the exact center, just because I wanted to ensure that I didn't have any sort of interaction with a stiffener right there. So I just slightly offset it inboard on both sides. But I drilled it out, initially match drilled them at 40, and then upsized it to a 1/8. And that is enough to still engage the coarse threads of this number 6 panhead screw and act as essentially a cheesy nut plate, I guess. That's what I'm inferring from these instructions. I haven't seen anything that says anything else than that. And I'll show you what I'm talking about here. These number 18s are number 6 panhead screws, and they just go bink, bink, bink into the floorboard. So if anybody else has any other ideas on how to install that, then let me know. Before I rivet this together, I do want to show you, all these cuts that I've made to make everything fit fairly well. Okay, specifically one cut. Okay, so here's this one of the plastic side panel. I cut a little slot right there. And what that does is that allows to slide like that. It'll fit pretty well, okay? So hopefully that's a good hint, and that'll work for you too. I wouldn't do that until, don't just copy me. put it in there and just keep that in your back pocket as an option if you need that to fit, all right? I keep thinking of things to talk about, and I'm not showing myself on screen because, as you can tell, I'm just not feeling that great. Just a little head cold, no big deal. Double check the rivet schedule on everything because these are size 40, 3/32 rivets, as well as these up here. But these are 1/8 AVEX rivets right there, okay? These are 3/32. I didn't listen to my own advice and accidentally drilled that to size 30, and so I put a AAPQ 41. But then these are size 40, these are size 30. These are screws for number 6 panhead. These are size 40. And these are screws number 8 panhead, number 6 panhead. So just, my point is pay attention when, before, you assume you know and start final sizing. It might already be final sized at the 40 size. So you use Tinnermans on this tab, the middle tab, and then the other tab on the outside. And this little peak guy, put the most adorable little nut plate Tinnermans you've seen right there. And then this fits right there. That screws in there, but it also attaches to this closeout right here. And here's the shape that I opened up for the rudder cables and the rudder return cables. And then of course Tinnerman 8, 4 on each side for those. That goes under there. So you're seeing how all of this pieces together. Okay, just finishing up cleaning up these holes, and we're gonna get to rivet these together. Okay, the closeouts are in. I wouldn't say final. I mean, they're final fit up, but I do need to take them out just for ease of finishing off this build, connecting up fuel lines and whatnot. But everything is working and fitting pretty good. So I'm moving on to the rudder cable closeout. So I'm just kind of grabbing the rudder cables and putting some tension on them and marking up, if you can see the black lines, where things are going to go with the respect to this tunnel here. So fitting that up. I've already got these all drilled. Thanks, Andrea, for doing that. So I'll just disassemble or take the tunnel off of these brackets, and then I've got 40 size holes drilled in those brackets. Put the brackets on there, match drill those to the floor, and clean it up. Lickety split, that'll be installed. And then the last thing I'm gonna do before my next trip is reinstall the closeout for the flap handle so that I can get this kind of final installed, covered in carbon fiber, and have it looking pretty darn good as far as the interior goes. So far, everything in this kit has been imperial standard sizes. This is the first thing I've found that's metric. This is a 10mm nut. This thing just kind of protects it, pops out, pops on, but clearly you need to remove this handle if you want to take this piece off. I'm trying to look at some stuff under there, but it's not really working too well. All right, this flap handle closeout is fitting much better. And the only advice I'll give you is just take your time. Don't blindly follow the cut lines that are imprinted in this thing for you. Just make it your own and take your time. I don't really have any other suggestions other than that, having done this twice. I will show you, I'll take out these and show you kind of how I'd cut around the Tinnermans down there, on there, to see how this kind of interacts. But it's all fitting really well. So the time now is to put in the little splice underneath, glue it, PVC glue it to one side, and then we will drill the holes for the panhead screws on that side, and then let that set up. Meanwhile, I'm going to cover this. You can see I took out all the hardware, remove this, and then I'm going to cover it in some carbon fiber tape, cut out the holes, and final install that. I say final install. I'll eventually take out pretty much the whole interior just to kind of finish the airplane, and then it won't come back in until it's ready for paint, or even after paint. Maybe they'll just prefer to paint these outside the airplane. All ready to glue these splices on. The instructions show just one splice, but I figure why make this pretty rigid stuff force around a bend. I'm just gonna have one here, two right there, and then a small number 3, oops, right there, and then number 4 right there. It gets a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 screws. So I figure probably 3 here, 2 here, 1 here, and 1 there, if that math adds up. Okay, got a bunch of clamps ready to go, Cleco clamps, and all the things. Okay, we'll let 1 and 4 dry, and come back and do 2 and 3 in a little bit. Man, this is some good stuff. It's a little bit sticky, but not that sticky, so you can really adjust it and squeeze air out of it, and it only kind of activates on pressure and heat. So I got the heat gun here, but I gotta just adjust the corners and also the holes in it. And I only got a 1 foot wide thing, that's why it's not covered all the way down, but it'll be covered up by the seats. All right, finished product, looks pretty good. Obviously it looks a little sloppy. I cleaned off some of the glue, but once it gets painted, it'll be just fine. So let's go ahead and fit this up, get it drilled and installed. This is sitting in here really nicely. There's a little bit of adjusting that I want to do, trim some of the tabs so they're not sitting on the structure in there, so it sits a little bit nicer. But I don't have time to do that right now. I got to run off to a trip, and I'm going to Hawaii twice, bragging, but bringing a couple of GoPros, the new Hero 11 and Hero 11 Black Mini, to review in some fun environments and vibrant colors. So look for that coming soon. I'll leave the link right there. I hope this video met the objective, which is not to show you how to do it, not to show you a perfect job of how to do it, but to show you an average job and the order in which to do things. Because I really wish that there was a video to guide me, but I kind of muddled through it. And so I'm hoping to save you a little bit of time. And also you can really pretty easily improve upon my job. But thanks again to Andrea for her help on this portion of the build. I'm really excited. Once we finish this next week, we're gonna get the wings up on the table, finish off the fuel tanks and the Aerosport Products carbon wing tips. Until next time, you're clear to direct.